Hello everyone, welcome back to Easy SAP ABAP. Today I'm going to teach you how to do some more advanced things with selection screens. I went into some pretty detailed things last time on my other selection screens video. I showed you push buttons, just a couple of different things that you could do that weren't completely everyday things. But today I'm really going to jump into a couple of things that I don't see used in selection screen reports very often, but they would be very nice to have. So those two things primarily that I want to show you guys today is how do we add a toolbar button, so a button like this at one of our selection screens. So if we take a look at another transaction, I say SU01. I've been using this one a lot lately for my examples, but SU01. So we see we have toolbar buttons here, and they have different keyboard shortcuts. So I'm going to show you how to create one of those in a selection screen without using a custom PF status or GUI status, and without using Screen Painter. We're not doing module pool programming. This report's only going to be standard selection screen. One other thing that I wanted to show you guys is how to do a tab strip. And let's go back to this trusty example transaction again. Just go ahead and type in my username, display, and I want to show you guys what I'm talking about. So this is a tab strip. A tab strip essentially lets you have these different tabs. I mean, self-explanatory, right? And then you can have blocks within those tabs, each with related information. So we can do tab strips as well. Let's see, was there anything else I wanted to show you guys? Yeah, I think that's what we're going to do today. So to start with, I went ahead and created a report called Z Advanced Selection Screens. And we'll just go ahead and jump into some of this code, and I will tell you what it all means. So in order to create our buttons, first of all, let's just go ahead and do a parameters. P uname, type sy uname, check it, activate it, give it a run. And I wanted to do this just so I could show you guys where I'm talking about on the screen. So this right here is your toolbar. This is where we're going to be putting our toolbar buttons. So to put a toolbar button, what we actually are going to need to do is use this object, well, I'll put it up here, use this table, SSCR fields. Now if we take a look down here, just say initialization, SSCR fields, and take a look at what we have in there. We have from text, to text, UCOM, and then func text, and search button. What we're mainly interested in here for our actual buttons that we're going to do is our func text 1 through 5. And we see there it says selection screen text for push buttons on the help for it. So we need to define some push buttons. So how do we do that? We're going to come up here and say selection screen, and the keyword we're going to use is function key, and we have to give it a number. So now if we run this, we're not going to see anything right there because there's no text. There's no button being produced. So how do we set the text for that? Easy enough. We come down here in our SSCR fields table, and this is with a header line. I know some of you guys have heard me say don't use tables with header lines, but traditionally when you're using this or loop at screen for the screen internal table, we're going to use header lines. It's just the way we do it. So now we can say for our text, let's say, I don't know, ABAP editor. We'll make this a button that will direct the user to the ABAP editor. So that's pretty neat. We have a button here. Now how do we handle the actual function code for that button? Let's go ahead and create another button too while we're at it. And then we'll say function key 2, just so I can illustrate a point here. We'll go ahead and change function key 2 to, let's just say, data dictionary. That's not too long of text, is it? No, that works just fine. So now we have our button, we have some text. Let's make it a little prettier. Let's add an icon. If you've watched my previous videos, you've seen me use this report 1,000 times, show icon, and that'll just give us the actual icon names. So we can use any of these icons in our report. What I'm going to do here is, let's say ABAP editor, maybe I just want to use, simple enough, this icon ABAP. So I'll say right here, icon underscore ABAP, ampersand ampersand, which is our shortcut for concatenation. check it, activate it, and run it, and we'll see up here we do have an actual icon associated with it. So let's go ahead and add one more. Let's add something to the data dictionary here. Let's just say, and I'm just using ones I know off the top of my head, icon underscore display. You guys can use whatever icons you want. This is just for illustrative purposes so I can see data dictionary, ABAP editor. Let's go ahead and just give this a name too right here. Something so that it doesn't just look so ugly. We'll just say it's DDIC. Just call it username. So now we're starting to look a little bit better here. What I will do now is we'll go ahead and show you how to handle the function codes whenever someone does click one of those buttons. So we'll just say at selection screen, we're going to do a case statement on our table that we used earlier, SSCR fields, really on the header line of this table and on the UCOM field. So we can say when, and our function keys are going to be FC and then the number, so 01. We said function 1 was ABAP editor, so we'll just say call transaction SE38. When FC02. We said it was data dictionary, so we'll say call transaction SE11 in case. And then what you want to do, because when you actually back out of, I'll show you what I'm talking about here, but you're going to want to clear this user command, because if I go to data dictionary and back out, well, I could have sworn it was doing this with me earlier. It was firing a second time, I guess the way I had my selection screen set up. But what I was doing, I was just clearing this SSCR fields UCOM, and that makes sure that, you know, if another event does somehow get triggered, and then we're at this at selection screen event again, we're not gonna go to one of these transactions a second time. Maybe I'll be able to replicate that in the future here and show you guys what I'm talking about. I'll actually leave this out just to prove I'm not too crazy. And watch, it won't happen now. But so what other thing I wanted to show you guys, so that's how you can handle your custom buttons, add icons, add text. Another thing I wanted to show you was how to do a tab strip. So tab strip's kind of an interesting thing. You have to create multiple selection screens as subscreens. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and create my main selection screen here. I'm going to say selection screen. This is the default selection screen. We're going to just say begin of tabbed block. Call it tab block 1, 4, and then you have to give it how many lines. So I'll say for 20 lines. So that's going to make our tab strip extend down the screen for 20 lines. So again, if I go ahead and run this, nothing's going to happen because we don't have anything going yet. But this is where we're going to specify. So we need to create our actual selection screen subscreens that will be used as our actual tab strip content. So we'll come down here and do that. We'll say selection screen, begin of screen 100. You can call it whatever you want as long as it's within that number range. As subscreen, selection screen, end of screen 100. Let's make something else. So we have two tabs. Do selection screen. I could actually just copy this. And save you guys from having to watch me type, because that's admittedly not interesting. So our second screen, we'll just call it 101. So we'll have our main default selection screen that we've defined up here. We're going to say that our first block is a tabbed block, and well, actually, technically before our first block we have this parameters here, and that parameters is actually going to show up before our tabbed block. So we'll make sure my syntax is right. I'm just going to check it. Yeah, that looks good. So now in each of these tabs, we can, just like we would any other screen, we can say parameters, and then I'll just say P1 radio button, add it to radio group 1, We'll give it a couple radio buttons. And then just do 3. You could add any sort of parameters or select options you wanted in here. I'll just go ahead and do select options. We'll say P datum 4 SY datum. So that looks good. Now our second subscreen, maybe this is a tab where we have some default data where the user isn't going to be changing it as much, but it's there if they want. We don't just want to put all of our parameters on one tab and confuse the user. Less is more when it comes to UI design, as far as don't throw 1,000 fields on one screen. Make them where you can get to them if you need them, but they're not just there. So we'll say in here, parameters, we'll say P color, type char 10, P, I don't know what's something else, car, type char 10, P day, type char 10. Really liking those char 10s there, I guess. So now we've got our 2 subscreens. One of them will have some radio buttons, and it'll have a selection for date. Then our second tab subscreen is going to have something for color, for a car, for a day, whatever variable you want in there, whatever parameter you desire. So now in our main selection screen, where is going to be the same screen where we also have this parameter here, PU name, we're going to come in here and we're going to say selection screen tab is the keyword, and we can F1 on this, and it'll give us all of our, I believe so anyway, I don't think I've ever done that, but it'll give us should give us the F1 help for it. It'll show us what additions we can use and all that sort of stuff, so that we can familiarize ourselves a little bit with the tab actual command here. So we say tab, the length of the tab, the user command for the tab, if we're going to have one. I believe we have to. Yeah, it's not optional. And then screen. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to say tab 20. We have to give it a name. I'll say tab 1. Give it a user command. I'll also say tab 1 just for simplicity. Default screen. And our screen is going to be 100. So this is going to put 2 tabs on the main selection screen. This first one's going to be the tab 1, which will be subscreen 100. Good. Let's go down here and add another tab. Also length 20, call it tab 2. Give it a user command of tab 2, and default screen is going to be 101. So now, just to go over this one more time before we run it, we have 2 selection subscreens here acting as the body of these tabs on our tab strip. We have our main selection screen here, and our main selection screen is going to call these 2 tabs as subscreens on the main selection screen. So now if we check this, activate it, I don't know if it'll display because I haven't given it text yet, but it might. We'll just look at what it looks like now. Good, so we have our username, which is our parameters, on our main selection screen. Then we have our 2 tabs. We can alternate between them, and we can see the parameters that we defined for each of those subscreens. So this is subscreen 100, this is subscreen 101. So how do we set the text here? Well, we can use text symbols in the initialization down here, or if we wanted to do it without using text symbols, which I'm just going to do again for illustration purposes, I'll call it tab 1, tab 2. So now if we check it, activate it, and run it, we get tab 1 and tab 2. Let's add some space here to make that just a little bit prettier. We can say selection screen. Well, that's before the tabbed block. Yeah, let's do it there. Skip 1. Only the addition tab can be, oh, so I can't do it in here. That's okay, we'll do it right here. Pretty print. Check, activate, run. So now we get a little bit of space here. So the way I would use this, maybe I would use a report. I could execute it after the user fills in data on tab 1 or tab 2. So that's one way to do it. Another way to do it is to have this right here as a selection. Disable all this stuff down here in these tabs. So make this, instead of username, say like a vendor number or something. So I enter whatever the vendor number is. User clicks execute, and then these fields down here in the actual tab strip would get populated. So that's another way to do it. You can do blocks down here in your tabs. So in this selection screen 100, I could say selection screen begin of block 1 with frame title. I'll say frame title 1, and then I can come down here after I select options and say selection screen end of block 1 and our initialization, or we could use text elements for this, either one. I'll just say, what I call it, ft1 frame title 1 equals, well, I'll say selection criteria. It'll be good and generic. So now F8 on that, we see we do have a block in here. We go to tab 2, we don't have that block. So we can do different blocks in there. We can make everything look just a little bit prettier. We can have our buttons up here with function code. And if we hover over this, we're actually going to see, it's kind of weird because that @9u @ is the actual icon that's getting displayed as text. I don't know any way around that. Maybe there is. Maybe some of you guys can comment on this video and let me know, and let everybody else know as well. But if you're going to use an icon, I think that's just going to have to be there. It's kind of ugly, but most people will probably ignore it anyway. But also, those function keys, you see there, Control F1, Control F2. So there are default keyboard shortcuts applied to those function keys. So that's another cool thing. Now, a lot of times people want to disable this execute button from appearing when they're writing transactions like this, writing reports like this, where they're going to have buttons aside from execute. Maybe they don't care about execute. So I'll also show you how to do that. So in order to remove the execute button, what we're going to need to do, and I think I can do this in initialization. Yeah, I'm thinking I can do it here. I might have to do it globally, but I hope not. So what we'll do is we'll say LV, and then we'll just call it UCOM type table of SYUCOM. We're going to append ONLI, which is our execute function code, to LV underscore F code. And there is a function module. We do call function rs underscore set underscore cell screen underscore status. And this is going to have an exporting parameter, or a parameter that we export here, p status. And we're going to say in there %sign underscore 00, which is our default status, our default GUI status for programs with selection screen. We're going to pass in our table LVUCOM. Actually, I should have said LTUCOM because it's a table here. If I'm sticking with my own naming convention, that is. And there is a parameter called pexclude where we're going to pass in LTUCOM. So, check it. LTF code. Oh, I'll call it LTUCOM here. Put an unnecessary period there. A lot of syntax checker. So this is going to take any sort of user command type status, let me rephrase that. Any user command from the GUI status put into this table and passed to the function rs set cell screen status is going to be excluded from the actual status. So we'll check this, activate it, and we'll run it. And we can see up here at the top, we no longer have our execute button. So now this really opens up a lot of possibility for what we do with selection screens. So we could have our standard selection screen without a tab strip as our initial selection screen. Ask a user to enter some data, maybe for a vendor, a customer, a supplier, something like that. They hit that good old execute button, and then it calls another selection screen, which has as subscreens tab strips. So you can really create a lot of what you would see in module pool programming and dialog programming simply using selection screen keywords. So that's about all I have for right now, guys. If this video prompts any questions for you, please leave me a comment. My email address is usually located somewhere in the video description, so shoot me an email if that suits you better. And thank you much for watching. Give me a like and a subscribe if you like this video, and I'll see you in the next one.